What is up, guys? It's me, Absolute Habibi, bringing in another tier list, this time focused on government types, which I feel like rarely gets talked about in the EU4 community, especially considering there is so many different types of government types. That being said, we are splitting them up into two different videos since there is so many. We are going to have the monarchies and tribes in one tier list, then the theocracies and republics on another tier list. So if you do want to see that, make sure to hit that subscribe button and catch it when I upload it, which I expect to upload it around sometime early next week. And also, if you notice on the right side here, we do have the wiki page open on the specific type of governments. So you can also see visually what these government types give you, as well as the requirements for them. You can pause and read it, etc. With that being said, let's get right into it. And we're going to start again with one of the top tier government types right off the bat. We're going to talk about the Mughal Diwan. This is the unique government type given to the Mughals, and weirdly enough, this isn't a it's not in the first tier of government reforms. It's actually in the second tier of government reforms, and allows you to add the bonuses of your first tier with your second tier. With that aside, it gives you 1 tolerance of truth faith, 150 governing capacity, and most importantly gives you the assimilate cultures into administration mechanic, which instead of having to deal with cultures, all you have to do is conquer an entire culture and it becomes assimilated into your country, no longer giving any malices, but also giving you a special bonus depending on the culture. Not only that, you don't lose the Mughal Diwan if you change religion or you change tag. The only way you can change tag is if you become the Holy Roman Empire. But yeah, in my Provence campaign, I formed Austria before I formed the Mughals, so I was an Austrian archduchy with the Mughal Diwan government, which is very cool and definitely deserves an SS. To start, we have our base government reforms. We have a feudal nobility, autocracy, and plutocracy. Feudal nobility and autocracy are the most standard across the board. I'm actually going to put autocracy in C with feudal nobility in D. Feudal nobility has its use in some cases, but autocracy is always useful. The -10 unjustified demands will save you in diplo points. And then I'm going to put plutocracy also in C, since it unlocks plutocratic ideas and gives you a merchant. The next we have is Iqta, which is a unique government type for Muslim nations, which is essentially like a theocratic monarchy. You have a dynasty and you have heirs, but you don't have consorts. And if your ruler dies and your heir is not old enough, you get a new randomized leader to rule your nation, which on the plus side, you will never be in a regency council, but on the negative side, that means that if you have a really good heir and you lose your ruler to RNG and your heir is not old enough to take the throne, your heir will just be thrown out the window and you just get given a randomized leader who could be like a 1-1-1. But that being said, you do get nice mechanics that you can use every 20 years. The national tax modifier, core creation cost, Diplo Rep, and Liberty Desire, which can be very useful in some situations. So for that reason, I'm going to put them into the C tier. Next, we have the Indian Sultanate, which is a Indian-flavored Iqta government type, where you still have the same taxation abilities as a Iqta, but you get +3 tolerance of heathens, which is especially useful considering this government type is for Muslim nations in India. And as you know, most provinces in India are Hindu, so this +3 tolerance of heathens is actually the difference between 0 religious unity and like 50 to 100% religious unity. There's many countries in India that start with this government type. The two that I can think on top of my head are Bahmanis as well as Jaunpur. I think this is better than an ICTA for not only the tolerance of heathens, but also because you can get consorts and you don't have to deal with the mechanic that I was speaking about earlier that makes that really stinks with ICTAs, where you can suddenly lose a really good heir just because he's too young. The next we have is the Nayankara system. This is a government type that is given to Orissa on the start of the game and is especially useful considering their position. They start with 4 vassals, and one of the best ways to conquer India is to continuously have a row of vassals. Like, you always want to have vassals be making dead tags and getting smaller nations that have claims on bigger areas, so you can save on admin points as well as save on aggressive expansion. For that reason, it gets a B. The next is the Missile Confederation, which is unique to a Sikh nation. So no nation starts with this government type, but you can change into it using 50 government reform progress. And it is especially good. It's 2 different modifiers, national manpower and -10 land maintenance modifiers, which go well with the Sikh religion, which has many militaristic bonuses attached with it. So I'm going to give this one also a B. The next we're going to look at is the Rajput kingdoms, which gives yearly army tradition of 25.25, which honestly isn't that much. However, when you add in all of the special government reforms that you can do down the line in your government reform tree, using the Rajput or the Western Aryan or Vidyan primary culture, the bonus from this actually adds up. So I'm going to give that also a B. Next, we have Grand Duchy, which is the unique government type of Lithuania. Sorry about that. The Lithuania starts with this government type, which makes it stuck at duchy rank, which forces you to basically become another nation if you're doing a Lithuania campaign somewhere down the line, which will be either PLC or Ruthenia. I've also seen in a multiplayer game a Lithuania player form Russia, but don't ask me about that. You can switch out of this government type, and if you become Orthodox and you change culture to Ruthenian, you can even become a Russian principality government, which we'll talk about earlier. But this gets a F from me, since you're stuck at duchy and you only get a bonus of governing capacity plus 100. Next is the daimyo government type, which is unique to the special vassals of the shogunate government type that we'll talk about later. All of the miners in Japan, besides Ashikaga, start with this government type. And although on paper this seems pretty nice, since literally everyone around you is going to have this government type, this +10 morale and +10 infantry combat ability does nothing, and you're also stuck at duchy rank. And also you have to consider that your leader can be killed at any moment if your liege decides it. So for those reasons, Dynamo gets a D tier. Next is independent Dynamo, which is different than Dynamo that you are independent. So you don't have to deal with those malices I was just talking about, where, you know, the emperor or the shogun can literally kill your ruler if you start a war. And you also get the morale and the infantry combat ability, and you can start wars outside of Japan. Add this with maybe like Shimazu ideas as well as the Shinto faith, you're looking at a very powerful nation in terms of morale. Of course, you can change your government. You're not stuck at duchy. And you can conquer Kyoto to become the shogun, which some people do abuse. Well, not really abuse, but use to basically become the shogun as Ryuku to do the 3 mountains achievement. For that reason, independent Dynamo gets a A. Next, we have the elective monarchy of Poland. The elective monarchy is interesting in that it is incredibly powerful before the age of absolutism. So not only as Poland, you get unique government reforms down the line in your government reform tree, but you also get the ability to get different dynasties on your throne. So if another dynasty for some reason promotes their dynasty on your throne, you can potentially get a de Valois or a Habsburg or a Rurokovic on your throne, which you can then use to claim another throne, and then you get it as a Commonwealth. You get a PU. Which makes you incredibly powerful, which, if you just look at that part alone, deserves an S. However, the reason why I'm going to put this in A is because of the problems that you deal with in the age of absolutism. This makes it incredibly hard for you to stay as a republic. Actually, it's impossible to stay as a elective monarchy. You basically have to choose between being a regular monarchy or becoming a republic, and you essentially have to deal with this disaster, which is really annoying. Keep in mind that you only get the elective monarchy government type if you get the Lithuanian PU as Poland in the decision. Which 90% of the time you will be doing. So just know that if it's your first time playing Poland and you have an elective monarchy, it's pretty nice. There is some malices sometimes, like when the Sejm disagrees with you and stuff. And later on in Age of Absolutism, you are going to have to deal with your disaster. Next is the Ottoman government type, which not only gives you a pretty good handful of bonuses, it also gives you the harem event mechanic when it comes to your heirs. So every time you need to pick an heir for your throne, you will get choice of 3 sons, and they will have varying different diplomatic, administrative, and militaristic prowess, right? One of them is guaranteed 6 in something, so this mechanic helps you consistently have a strong leader. Not only that, when you do lose your heir, you can always just pick another one. Not only that, you get the Janissary special unit, which are incredibly powerful. And you also get Pashas, which, you know, they're not really that great, but they do give minus unrest and state maintenance, or minus state maintenance. And combined with all of these things, you get a very powerful government. Keep in mind that even though this is a locked reform as Ottomans, and if you form room, it's a locked reform. However, you can get out of it by switching religions. If you switch religions, you lose the Ottoman government type. I'm going to put this in the SS tier. Next is Prussian monarchy. This government type is incredibly powerful for tall civilizations, and although the minus 50 governing capacity is really harmful, you can get rid of it at any time if you suddenly decide to go really wide as Prussia. You can just spend 50 government reform progress. It's not a locked reform. And you can use this to basically become punch incredibly above your weight and use the militarization mechanics to have an even more powerful army. So I'm going to put this into S tier. Next is the Imperial Austrian Monarchy. This government type gives +2 promoted cultures, -2 national unrest, +2 monarch diplomatic skill, and -33 promote culture cost. Although they don't have unique government abilities, once you get this government type by completing the mission to integrate Hungary as Austria, you don't lose it even if you tag switch out of Austria. You can form literally any nation in the game, and you still will have Imperial Austrian Monarchy. Which can lead to some cursed games where you can have an Imperial Austrian monarchy with a Mughal Diwan, which I actually did in my most recent world conquest, which was incredibly cursed. But yes, I'm going to give this an S. The Imperial Austrian monarchy gets an S. Next, we have Russian Principality. This one, this government type is incredibly powerful, with one big downside. You're stuck as a duchy, which for most cases is okay, but if you're playing as Muscovy, which starts as a Russian principality, until you get admin tech 10 and form Russia, you are stuck as a duchy. The 100 governing capacity helps you, but I've seen many cases, especially multiplayer games, where players are struggling with governing capacity and paying double or triple the cost for advisors because they are a little bit behind in admin tech and aren't able to form Russia yet. But once you form Russia, all of those problems are gone. Given that you do get Russian government mechanics, so you can use basically based off your government type, based off your ruler's monarch points. Based off your ruler's monarch points, you get progress in these 3 different abilities. One gives local autonomy in all provinces, another does minus 30 progress for all rebel factions, and the other does minus 2 war exhaustion and raise 20% of force limit as Streltsy units, which are special units that give fire damage. Considering you can also do special Cossack regiments using your Cossack estates, you can get an army of special units that is infantry, Streltsy, and cavalry Cossacks. For that reason, I give them an A tier. The next is Tsardom, which is an upgraded version of a Russian principality, which alone would bump it to S tier. But the next thing is that that you can claim entire areas rather than provinces. You also get a bunch of cool bonuses. This is a government type that is only for Ruthenia and Russia. You must be Ruthenia or Russia, and forming out of those Ruthenia will make you lose the Russian Tsar type. You also need to be Orthodox. So in order to get this government type, you need to be Orthodox. But I am going to put that in the SS tier. Yes, the next is Mamluk government type. This is only for Mamluks, and if you form out of Mamluks, you will lose it. So forming Arabia will make you lose this government type, and becoming another religion that isn't Muslim will also make you lose this government type, same as the Ottoman government type. This one gives you a bunch of different bonuses, even +2 monarch administrative skill, and also has a choose your heir type thing like Ottomans, except instead of it being 3 sons, it's 3 different rulers with different legitimacy depending on their culture. The more common their culture is in your country, the lower their legitimacy. So for example, Egyptian culture, which is one of your most prominent cultures, an heir of Egyptian culture will have the lowest legitimacy. This has to do with how the Mamluks chose their leaders, and basically the origins of the Mamluk Empire. It's supposed to mimic this, or the Mamluk Kingdom. Basically, you have a trade-off of high legitimacy versus the ability to use your culture interactions, which we are about to talk about now, which gives you the ability to basically do different things depending on your leader's culture. So even though if you pick an Egyptian ruler, he'll have low legitimacy, but your cultural interactions will be stronger, which I think is a pretty cool mechanic that the player has to basically weigh and determine what is best for them. For that reason, I'm going to put the Mamluk government in S tier. The next government we're going to talk about is feudal theocracy, which I have been falling in love with. I actually haven't had a proper campaign with them yet until very recently when I decided to play Persia. And there is only actually a handful of countries that start with this government type. Ardabil, Oman, Mazab, Rasids, and Mushasha. And forming Persia also gives you this government type. It gives you +1 missionaries, +1 missionary strength, +2 tolerance of true faith, +50 governing capacity, and +5 clergy loyalty equilibrium. And you can use monarch points to give you different bonuses. The first one, -15 construction costs for 5 years, isn't that big of a bonus. It is nice when you're building a lot of manufactories or a lot of markets, but usually it's not worth trading monarch points for money. The next one, invite minorities from abroad, is amazing because it gives -20 in the capital state and gives local development for 5 years +1 random development in your state. So this modifier -20 stacks with a bunch of other modifiers, and you can have very low dev cost, which as a nation outside of Europe, you always need to dev up the different institutions. So this will always be helpful. Every single 50 years, I guarantee you will be clicking this button. The third one, the Sanctioned Holy War, is also amazing because it gives you claims on all of the provinces next to you. This alone is god tier by just stacking that with admin ideas for core cost reduction, as well as stacking that with religious ideas. So you have the Duist Vault CB, you have reduced AE and reduced core cost on every province that's next to you, essentially. So that is super nice, and for that reason, this gets a SS tier. I do have to mention that it's not just on any province that you border. It has to be heretic or heathen province that you're not allied to. It basically, if you're playing as a Shia nation or a Ibadi nation, that essentially 90% of the time means all provinces that you border. Yeah, that's essentially what I meant. The next is Celestial Empire, and I'm going to put this straight up in F. There's a bunch of reasons why it's F, mostly because you now have to deal with metocracy and the Mandate of Heaven mechanics. You lose estates, so you can't get free monarch points. Instead, you get factions that are not as good as estates. You also have the events associated with your empire. So if you get this and you don't control a lot of Chinese provinces or Chinese cultured provinces, you'll basically end up destroying your... In many cases, you dodge forming the Celestial Empire by dismantling the Mandate of Heaven before forming countries like Yuan. And yeah, for that reason, in my opinion, it's an F. Next, we have Shogunit, which has the unique Dynamo vassal, which does not take a Diplo slot. However, the Dynamos can attack each other and war one another. This does allow you to do special unique interactions that don't exist with any other vassals, such as ordering a ruler to commit seppuku, which basically you tell a ruler to commit suicide because they started a war with another daimyo, which gives you monarch points. You can also move development from one of your vassals' capital to your capital, and you can also take their leaders. You also have shogunate abilities, which are pretty useful. Again, they're like Ikta, where you choose for one, and then you have the one ability for the given amount of time, and then once it's over, you can choose another one, which give you different bonuses. You do have a fixed rank of kingdom. However, since the daimyo mechanics are so powerful and they cost no spots in your Diplo relations and can be abused, I'm going to put this in the S tier in government types. Next, we have the English monarchy, which it gives you parliament in the very early game, and of course you can only get this as England or Great Britain. And forming Great Britain you can switch to this government type. However, once you switch to this government type, you cannot switch out of this government type. It is like the Polish elective monarchy, that in the age of absolutism you have a specific event called the English Civil War where you have to deal with it, where you have three options, where either you stay English monarchy or you become a despotic monarchy, which is essentially a autocracy, or you become a republic, which is pretty interesting. But I'm going to put this in the A tier, since the absolutism hurts, and you can't just straight away trigger court and country, because if you lower your stability, you will just trigger English Civil War, and then you're going to have to trigger court and country if you want to stay in English monarchy. So that stays in A. Next is Mandala system, which gives you a bunch of bonuses related to, two bonuses related to vassals, vassal force limit contribution, and vassal income. But it also gives you governing capacity, which is really nice. I think this right now is a B, but seeing that this is for Southeast nations with the Chinese technology group, so basically nations in Southeast Asia, This is going to be a lot more powerful in the next patch, because if we look at the mission trees that are being given to nations such as Ayutthaya or Khmer, they have a lot of subjugation CBs that this will be very powerful. And those are the countries that start with the Mandala system. So this, I think right now is a B tier, but will upgrade to A tier in the next patch. Next, we have Revolutionary Empire. This is going to go into SS tier just because you have, not only do you have a bunch of bonuses, not only do you have the revolutionary target bonuses if you are the first to get revolutionary, you also get all new reformation choices in your government tree that you can select through. You also get some completely new tiers that weren't even there before, going up to like 13 different tiers. But because of that, I think the Revolutionary Empire is incredibly powerful. And if you are the first one, it's even more so powerful. So it deserves an SS tier. Next is Crusader State, which gives you Duist Vault CB for free from religious ideas. This is the government type for Jerusalem, and it is for monarchies that form Jerusalem, so specifically Provence and Cyprus. When they form Jerusalem, they get this government type. Forming out of Jerusalem, so forming like two Sicilies after forming Jerusalem, will make you lose this government type. So you lose your free CB. The CB alone puts it up into A tier, so I'm going to put it in A tier. Next, you have Austrian Archduchy, which gives you minus 33 liberty desire in subjects and plus 5 noble influence, which are pretty nice bonuses for what Austria does in the early game, which is have a lot of subjects. So this gets a B tier. Now we move on to tribes, which are different in monarchy in that they have a completely different reformation tree along a different path than monarchies, as well as different from republics. It also gives you a decision as any tribe at the end of the tree, which you usually can complete in 100 to 150 years, to become a monarchy, republic, or a steppe nomad. And if you do monarchy or republic, you lose all your reform progress, but steppe nomad is the first government we're going to talk about, which actually I'm going to straight away put it into S tier. Not only do you get a free CB on all nations next to you, you also get a bunch of modifiers related to your military, as well as looting and separatism. You also get only one estate rather than 3, which is not that good because now you don't get the free points, but you make more than enough of that points through the raising mechanic that nomads have, as well as the shock damage on plain-like territory. So as long as you fight on plain-like territory, your armies will be a lot stronger. But yeah, for that reason, they're S tier. You can world conquest very fast with a steppe nomad. You can conquer, and everyone knows that they're the fastest way to conquer in EU4. The next is Great Mongol State. This one's interesting in that it removes the institution spread malice that you have from nomads, and you can raise banners, which you can't do in a normal steppe nomad. And because of that, they get an SS tier. So they get all the bonuses as a horde, but get a couple of different buffs to them, as well as the banners. The banners being the most important because not all hordes and steppe nomads can raise banners. Next, we have a tribal federation, which gives minus 5 years of separatism. This starts with and is only available to Arabian nations, including Aya Kalyunu and Kara Kalyunu. You also have the tribal allegiance mechanics that you can use. And they're kind of useful for what you're doing early on. And for some of these countries, like for example Nejd, you usually go nomad later. But early on, the minus 5 separatism is useful. So I'm going to put that in C category. Next is a tribal despotism, which gives minus 10 core creation cost, which, as you know, core creation cost is one of the most important modifiers in the game. Saves you a lot of admin power and can allow you to conquer without falling behind in admin power. This gets bumped up to a B. Next, we have a tribal monarchy, which is like a worse version of a feudal monarchy. So for that reason, I'm going to put it in F because it's a tribe. Next, we have the Siberian native councils, which gives you the ability to migrate like normal tribal councils, but you also have minus institution spread and minus stability cost, and you have a fixed rank of duchy. But those moving around can help you find your gold province that you're gonna dev up. I guess that's the most play with Siberian nations. As this is only for Siberians, I'm gonna just put this in the D rank. The next is Gond Kingdom, which is, I'm not even sure who gets this, but it's plus 24 defenses. I'm going to just put it into the C tier. Again, it uses the same icon as Tribal Federation. But yeah, it's on the same tier too. It gives you a nice bonus, but you're on a completely different tree than monarchies and republics. And in my opinion, it's a little bit of a weaker tree, and it's a smaller tree. So with that being said, that wraps up my my monarchies and tribes tier list, and here it is in all of its glory. And looking at it again, I wish I had an SSS tier because the Mughal Diwan system is just on another level than all the other government types, and especially considering you can combine this with other government types if you're clever enough. This definitely deserves an SSS. But yep, that being said, I actually just reached 1,000 subscribers on YouTube, and I want to thank you all for subscribing and in being a part of my YouTube journey. Yeah, that's really about it. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Let me know in the comments. As always, let's discuss it, or discuss it in my Discord, which will be pinned in the comment section. All right, I'll see you in the next one, boys. Peace.